research which make a difference.
What we feel is that this generation will be the one driving Viksit Bharat in 2047. We have also set up 10 co-innovation centers which have been set up in collaboration with some like-minded and forward-looking institutions to take the vision of IHFC forward.
As IHFC completes its 5 years, it's indeed satisfying to note the achievements made by the Hub under technology development, skill development, entrepreneurship development, and international collaborations.
IHFC now celebrates 5 years of its existence. We have come a long way. We have now created an ecosystem where we can support innovators, faculty members, researchers to take their journey forward in terms of cobotics to make a difference in the Indian ecosystem.
I wish we could make one of the best systems in the world to take our country, in the forefront of technology creations, and at the same time, Atmanirbhar Bharat, not only for Bharat but also for the world.
Welcome to Cobotalks, where we shape the future of human-robot collaboration. Cobotalks is a monthly seminar series held on the second Wednesday of each month, bringing together leading researchers, innovators, and professionals to exchange insights and advancements in the field of collaborative robotics. Since its inception, Cobotalks has featured 50-plus experts, showcasing how intelligent robots enhance human capabilities, productivity, and key sectors like healthcare, agriculture, defense, and industry. This initiative is brought to you by IHFC, the Technology Innovation Hub of IIT Delhi, the Center of Excellence, in collaboration with BIRD, and the Cognitive Science Program at IIT Delhi's Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. The iHub Foundation for Cobotics, IHFC, the Technology Innovation Hub of IIT Delhi, established under the National Mission on Interdisciplinary Cyber-Physical Systems, NMICPS, by the Department of Science and Technology, DST, Government of India. It was launched in June 2020. IHFC operates across 4 key verticals: research and development, education and training, startups and entrepreneurship, and international collaboration, fostering technology commercialization and building global partnerships with academia, industry, and government. In application, IHFC works in advancing collaborative robotics in medical and healthcare, agriculture, industry, and defense, leading initiatives like drone swarming and medical cobotics to enhance human-robot collaboration for real-world impact. IHFC has partnered with 10 institutes nationwide to establish co-innovation centers, empowering students and entrepreneurs in robotics, AI, ML, and IoT to develop innovative solutions and high-impact startups. Aligned with the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, for a Viksit Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat, these centers foster deep tech R&D, skill development, and creative problem-solving, equipping India's youth to drive technological advancements and compete globally. IHFC's mission is to create a world-class ecosystem for innovation, bridging research and practical applications to enhance human-robot collaboration for societal benefit. BIRD, IIT Delhi's Center of Excellence in Biologically Inspired Robots and Drones, is a leading hub for interdisciplinary robotics research. Founded through the Program for Autonomous Robotics, in 2010, it develops intelligent, sustainable robotic systems and has been instrumental in establishing the Robotic Society of India and the Interdisciplinary Specialization in Robotics, IDSR. BIRD consists of 27 members and has produced more than 150 publications over its 10 years of operation, working on 10-plus industrial and academic projects. The Cognitive Science program at IIT Delhi offers an interdisciplinary approach to studying the human mind, integrating diverse theories and methods. It prepares students for careers in academia, industry, research, brain sciences, and human-machine interaction. Leading the way in human-robot collaboration space. Join us for an exciting interaction session, second Wednesday of every month. Cobotalks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And a very, very warm welcome to all the attendees today. In fact, this is our 56th edition of Cobotalks. And, in fact, we're going to have, because it's, we are progressing and we are beyond the 50th one and we're almost on the 56th, we are going to be introducing some really, really exciting things on this Cobotalks this time. Starting from today, and you will get to see some very exciting opportunities as well as some new promotions that we are planning to launch through our Cobotalks. So welcome once again to our monthly seminar, which is held second Wednesday of each month. And this features some of the best that we have in terms of researchers, scientists, our startups, as well as our research projects. And we have some wonderful speakers who have been here in the past. And today we are very honored that we are joined by Articulus Surgical CEO Saurya Mishra. He is actually Articulus is one of our incubated startups and is a very, very promising startup which has won many recognition, awards, and grants from all over the world, as well as in India. And they are, on the threshold of seeing something great. And I think I really emotionally, you could say, connect with what Articulus has in mind as an ethos and as a vision, because what they're looking at is basically, the aim is to empower surgeons and healthcare providers so that they provide the best in medical care. Now, what happens, I'm talking from personal experience as well, because a lot of times, and what is this topic, if you've seen very interestingly today, is actually future of cobotics for healthcare and surgery. Now, when we say that, it is because we want every surgeon and every doctor at the end is human. And, when we have a machine which is aided with the intelligence of a very good doctor, I am 100% sure, and that's what the vision is of Articulus as well, that it's going to be absolutely a surgery with precision. So to avoid all this kind of fatigue and maybe kind of human errors that may come, that's when Cobotics comes into play. And that is what we are looking at, collaborative robotics. And that is what he's going to be talking about, because his aim is with Articulus surgical equipments to make what you call surgery, the robotic surgery, very, very affordable and too easy to reach out to a lot of people out there, and just not for the very privileged and the entitled. So it's a very noble thought. And I think with that kind of a thought, with the startups in this country, I can see our country going a very, very long way. And because they're going to be, they're offering surgical equipments with affordable operation costs as well as training. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to run for it. I'm sure we are joined by a lot of people who are researchers and professionals in robotics as well as medtech. And Shaurya has lots and lots to discuss with you, so I will not take too much of your time. And I shall warmly welcome Saurya Mishra. Thank you so much. And we are very privileged to have you with us on this Cobotalk session. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Pia. I think that was a very, very nice introduction. There's a lot of expectations from me, but I'll see how much I can keep up to it. But let me very quickly, say that, I really love the way IHFC has been running this, Cobotalks. I was there for the first Cobotalk as well, right? But at that point of time, it was before Articulus, and I just wanted to see what's going on. And it's amazing to see that we are in the 56th edition of Cobotalks. So absolutely fabulous work by IHFC. So they're one of our best partners, as I was saying. I hope everyone can see my screen, right?
Yeah, sure, it's clear.
Okay, perfect, great. So let's. I just want to.
Can everyone be muted, please? Can everyone please put their mics on mute? Uh, Neha, can you mute all? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sorry about that. Please continue.
All right, great. So, I've been asked to talk about the future of cobotics in healthcare and surgery. While our company and our focus is on a very small portion of surgical robotics, it's a very vast field, right? So the aim of this talk is to essentially not to go super deep into one particular kind of healthcare robotics, but rather to understand everything else that is around it. What are the technical challenges? Why is it important? Why we are doing what we are doing? And to basically go in that sort of sense, right? And I'll be happy to take a lot of questions on this, as well. I would like to say surgical robotics or healthcare robotics is very big on the cobotics concept, where a man and a machine work together to fulfill an aim which is bigger than what the man could do and bigger than what the machine could do, right? So, and therefore it is at the absolute brim and the cusp of what is possible to be done. So with that, I want to briefly tell you a little bit about myself. So I am an alum of IIT Kharagpur, bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering, and I have worked a lot on humanoid robotics back in the college. So I've done a lot of motion control and control systems. I've been a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineers and worked close to around 14 years in medical devices. These includes some of the companies like Philips Healthcare, Morphle Labs. So many different variants of robotics, as we would sort of find out in healthcare. I have been a part of designing and developing many medical devices, both designed and developed and manufactured in India and abroad. I was just looking at some of the figures, and I think some of the systems that I have worked on have been installed in close to 130 countries all over the world. So that's something I'm really proud of, and that's what makes healthcare very close to my heart also. I come from a family of healthcare professionals, doctors and surgeons. Some of the most hardworking people I know are surgeons and doctors, and that's where this ethos comes from, and that's where the entire aim of creating something altruistic, something that is bigger than yourself, and trying to help society as a whole also comes from. That's where Articulus was essentially born out of. And this experience in this combined experience in robotics, healthcare, and and medical devices is what brought or what came together to create Articulus ultimately. But that's enough about me. There's a lot more interesting things to talk about. But I always begin a standard talk. It's something of a matter of pride for us Indians that the earliest known organized form of surgery, of surgical intervention, was done about 2600 years ago in the city of Varanasi. And this was done by Shushruta. I think we all have heard his name. Some of the procedures, interestingly, are still existing, right? Some of the things, for example, there is a type of procedure known as a flap rhinoplasty, which is basically the surgery of the nose for those who have a damaged or a congenital nose issue. This kind of procedure is performed. This was created and documented more than 2600 years ago, and it's an absolute matter of pride for all of us, right? But there is also a little bit of a negative side to what I'm saying, or rather something that makes me a little bit of sad, is because on the bottom of the slide you can see that what surgical instrumentation used to look like 2600 years ago, and compare that to what modern surgical instruments are. Yes, there has been an evolution in the materials that are used, but other than that, more or less things are still the same, and things have been same for the last 25 2600 years. There have been a lot of great advances in surgery. There has been the invention of anesthesia, so Boyle's apparatus. I'm pretty sure you're aware of that. There have been antibiotics, and with anesthesia and antibiotics together, and antiseptics, of course, right? But the instrumentation part of things has changed very little, right? But the things started changing a lot in the last 50 years. And we will briefly talk about why they changed and how they changed with the advent of laparoscopy, with the advent of robotic surgeries, and why they came into the picture. So, to understand why, why robotics, we need to also understand the quick history of robotics as well. Not going to spend much time here. Earliest known examples of robotic systems were, the karakuri, puppets, which were very popular in Japan. Used to be a very small doll which used to move from one end to another and, fetch you a cup of tea, right? Something, it was a purely mechanical system. Following that, we had the Puma robots. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Industrial robots which focus on sensors, programming, and how you can pick something from one place and place it at another. There have also been systems like the Da Vinci, of course, which are more of motion refinement and master slave kind of systems. And this is going to be our predominant and primary focus of today's discussion. While at the same time, we are also have seen systems like, for example, the rovers which are there in other planets, which have a certain level of autonomy and they can take decisions on their own. Bring together all of these things: mechanisms, sensors, programming, motion refinement, master slave, autonomy, and you get the essence of what medical robotics and robotics in general is. Now, robotics, this is a very, I really don't like this slide, but we will have to go through this. So robots in healthcare are vast and absolutely varied, right? So if you split robots in healthcare, and some of the core areas, you can split it as robotics that are used in surgery, non-surgical robotics, rehabilitation robotics, and assistive and logistical robotics, right? And even within surgical robotics, there are multiple variants. Some of them are, and the one that we will focus on is master slave robotics. The concept is very simple, right? It's that the surgeon himself is performing the procedure, but the object that is attached to the patient, or the object that is manipulating the patient, is the robot. So the control is still with the surgeon, right? The second kind of robot in surgery are navigational robots. These are something that, we'll not deeply go into it, but if you have questions, happy to discuss that as well. These are essentially systems where a certain navigational data, be it a CT or an MR or an ultrasound image, is merged with with the intervention itself, so that you can do, let's say, a needle biopsy in a very, very accurate way. Or let's say you can do a spinal tap, or you can do a placement of a plate on the spine, and very accurately drill the holes that is used to fix the plates. These are a part of navigational robotics, right? But that's the whole plethora of surgical robotics, right? In master slave robotics, we particularly focus on mass. Mass is known as minimal access surgery. These are surgeries where the procedure is done by creating very small holes in the abdomen instead of cutting the abdomen open completely. So these give much better clinical outcomes to patients. While there are also other kinds of surgeries, for example, like ophthalmic surgeries or microvascular surgeries, right, where extreme high amount of precision is required to perform this, and that's where robots are becoming very popular. In the fields which are non-surgical, as you can see in the bottom of your screen, are systems, for example, microscopic pathology or robotic pathology, where the entire biopsy slide, for example, is scanned, analyzed, and the entire result comes out in one go. So that is something that my previous company, Morphle Labs, where I used to head R&D, developed this kind of systems. There are also systems which are therapeutic in nature. For example, the robots that are used for providing for example, gamma knife. Gamma knife is essentially a very huge room-sized robot which throws gamma radiation at a tumor from many different angles, so that tumor ultimately gets burnt, but the tissue around it is unaffected, right? So that is a wonderful example of a non-invasive but still therapeutic robotic system, right? And plus, of course, there are a lot of robotic systems that you are also aware of. Prosthetics are a great example of medical robotics, and so are physiotherapy robots, where a single robot itself moves the patient's legs, let's say post an accident or post a neurotrauma, in order to rehabilitate the patient. And then also there is another whole category of healthcare robots, which include robots that lift a patient, which transport samples from one end of the hospital to another, and deliver food to the patients to their doorsteps, which became very popular, in fact, during the COVID time, right? So robotics in healthcare is a huge chunk, but the maximum amount of market or the maximum focus that is happening right now is in this sector, is in the minimal access surgery sector. When we say surgical robotics or a medical robot, we essentially mean this 90% of the time. And that's what we are going to focus our discussion on. So what makes one surgical robot different from another? I try to sort of put it in a very logically understandable way. There are two sort of inputs that happen to most surgical robots. One is a trajectory input, or it's a diagnostic data input, right? A trajectory input is very simple. If you can see in this picture, there's a surgeon holding a certain kind of a controller. So the way the surgeon moves his controller is replicated in this system. So essentially, it's a master slave kind of a system, and that's what it does. The other kind of system is where you have a diagnostics data. As you remember, I was saying that if you want to fix a plate on the spine, right, and you want to drill very precise holes in the spine, but you don't want to damage, the spinal cord. So for that kind of a situation, you need to take the data which is available from a CT or an MR, superimpose it on your device. So the robot itself, as you can see in this system or this system, it will guide you on exactly where to put the drill. The position and orientation of your instrument that you're holding in your hand, which is a drill or a bolt, is tracked and it is compared and matched with what you have on the other end. That's the diagnostic data. So these are the two sort of variants, that are there. Uh, but yes, we have been talking about a lot of this. A lot of surgeries, or in fact, most of these procedures were invented even prior to robotics coming into the picture. So why essentially did robotics come into the picture in surgery or healthcare is essentially I have categorized into 5 core areas or core limitations of humans or human surgeons, right? So the first and the biggest one being the limitation of vision, right? So we are all aware that the human eye is a great machine, but we are very limited when it comes to how much zoom we have in our eyes or how big we can see. Like the resolution of eye is a fixed number. We also can only see in a certain spectrum, right? We cannot go beyond that. So therefore, there's a certain limitation of the human eye. The limitation of the body is an interesting limitation, which essentially means that if, for example, if these are the size of your hands, like, there are 15 centimeters each, right? If you have to operate on the abdomen of a patient, you would need to create an incision which is big enough for your hand to fit in. That is a very massive trauma for the patient. So if you need to do the procedure in a very small or a very minimally invasive way, you would need something else to do that. Then there is the limitation of precision. One of the biggest issues that we have is one of the problems that we have seen with a lot of surgeons is once you hit the age of 45, your hands start trembling. Everybody has a natural hand trembling frequency. That frequency is roughly around 60 hertz, something around that. Now this prevents you from doing ultra precise work when you're performing a surgery. And that is a limitation that is there. There's also a limitation of endurance. So most surgeries are performed when a surgeon is standing next to a patient, right? And you can only stand for a limited amount of time. You will only have attention for a limited amount of time. Now imagine a surgeon, and with the number of surgeons in India being very limited, imagine a surgeon doing 4 surgeries, and by the time he's doing the 4th surgery, he is very tired, and therefore the patient's outcome will depend on that. And of course, then finally, we have a limitation of data processing as well, right? With each patient undergoing a massive amount of preclinical, CTs, MRs, and X-rays, collating all of those data and making a sense out of it is something that is also a limitation of humans. So if you put all of these together, is where the core beauty of robotics comes into picture. So therefore, what does a robot do? A robot in general, and in this case, a minimal access robot, essentially improves your vision, right? So a surgical robot, in a surgical robot, as you can see on your screen, I've put a very small picture here. The surgeon is sitting at a surgical console and he is looking at a certain screen, right? Now, with this screen, what he can see essentially is a very close and zoomed in view of inside the abdomen. So that very highly improves his vision. There is also a concept known as ICG, indocyanine green, where there is a certain dye that is inserted into the patient just before the procedure. So if you change into ultraviolet or infrared range, you will see vasculature as different than tissue itself, and that improves the ability to do procedures much better. The second, of course, is natural motion. Now, this is very critical, because if you look at the hands of the surgeon, if they move left, your instrument moves left. If they move forward, it moves forward. If you move it backward, it moves backward. This is a very natural compared to laparoscopy, and I'm very sure most of you know what a laparoscopic surgery is, right? So these are very long instruments that are used on the abdomen to perform procedures. There, the motion is completely inverted. Left is right and right is left, right? Then, of course, there is dexterity and precision, right? Even if a surgeon's hand is trembling, right, the motion is filtered when it passes through the processor inside the robot, and you get very clean and simple motions, right? And finally, of course, and this is the most important part, which is often overlooked in robotics, which is known as a machine in the middle. So if you try to understand whatever happened with the autonomous driving cars, right? Autonomously driven cars, ADAS, and everything became common only after we disjointed the driver from the drive system and put a computer in the middle, right? So essentially, drive by wire is what enabled this. We also foresee, therefore, that a similar kind of a automation revolution will at some point of time happen in robotics, and this is what is going to be the harbinger of that. So let's come to essentially why do this as a problem statement, right? The volume of surgeries that we focus on is very, very high. So about 170 million abdominal surgeries happen every year. If you want to look up at this data, there's a very beautiful data from Lancet report, which generally talks about how many of what surgeries happen every year around the world. The ballpark figure is per 1 lakh population, 5,000 surgeries per year are needed, and about 3,500 surgeries actually take place, right? So, but if you look at a very, very small percentage of this is done through legacy robotic systems, right? Essentially because these systems are very expensive, these systems are very large. These systems are created in order to, for a very, as Pia was also mentioning at the beginning of this for the privileged. Is if you can go to a large hospital, if you go to some place which has a very advanced robotic system, you can only get that. And the surgeries are 5x more expensive compared to a manual surgery. So obviously, somebody who cannot afford will obviously go for a lesser option. This is a problem that we really wanted to solve, and this is what we are striving to solve it. But along the way, we also figured out a lot of things that we can add in order to give a lot of benefits to surgeons. So let's very quickly go through a lot of technical details of what the robot comprises of, what it has and what it can do. So a surgical robot in general has 4 parts: a surgical console, patient carts, instruments, and optics. So we'll go through all of them one by one. So surgical console is essentially the unit where the surgeon sits and through which the surgeon controls what goes on and how the procedure happens, right? This surgical console generally has 2 parts. One is the hand controller, or what you use your hands to control. And the second is the display, or how the system is displayed, right? On your screen, I have put two of the very common systems that are used. By the way, a disclaimer here, all the images that you see are basically taken off the public domain. So, so just to make sure of that. There are, as you can see, these are two of the most common surgical robots in the world. One is the intuitive Da Vinci system. The second is the CMR surgical system. One is out of US, second is out of UK. Very, very different approaches, and I wanted to contrast that, with what it is. So, so if you look at the way that the finger grip works here is essentially you grip a small cup kind of a holder in your hand, and if you press it, it presses the instrument inside the patient, and if you release it, it releases it. You can move your hands however you want. The entire robot in both the cases is connected through multiple links, right? Now, very interestingly, so obviously when you move your hand, each of these joints change. And by doing a forward kinematic analysis on each of these, on this joint space, you would be able to figure out what the orientation and what the position of your surgeon's hand is. Now you can take that data and then you can basically run an inverse kinematics on the robot and it will be replicated, right? But that's not the end of the story. There's a lot of other stories as well, right? The precision at which you are sensing these joints and the sampling rate of these joint sensors becomes very, very important. So for example, in the most common cases, the sampling is higher than 1,000 samples per second. So obviously they cannot run on a very simple protocol. They will have to run either on a very effective CAN open protocol, or they have to run on an EtherCAT protocol. And therefore that's what makes them very, very fast, right? Then the second, of course, is the fact that what happens, because this link has a weight of its own. So if you move it down, it's much easier to move it down. And if you move it up, it is much difficult to do that because you're fighting against gravity. So in order to tackle that, there is a concept known as gravity compensation that comes in. So there are motors here inside each of these arms, which essentially calculates the gravity at that point of time so that only the additional amount of force that you are applying on the controller is effectively converted into the motion, right? So this is you can call it an adaptive control or a quasi-adaptive control. There are many different algorithms for that, but that sort of needs to happen. At the same time, as I was mentioning earlier, a very serious tremor reduction also needs to happen because of the hand tremor needs to be completely filtered out. So there has to be a really good Kalman filter running inside. Generally, these filters are run on an FPGA board because you want this to run at a very, very rapid rate. Coming back to the last point I want to touch upon, the display. If you look at both of these, you'll see that there's a vast amount of difference. This is known as an immersive display, where the surgeon essentially sees everything in 3D, right? And there are two displays on both sides. There's a lens arrangement and you see something in the left and something in the right. That gives you a very immersive feel of the surgical area. While at the same time, there are also open, displays, something like this. This is where you either, you wear a 3D glass where you see the things, in 3D. Each has its own advantage and disadvantage, and it's always somebody says that this is better, somebody says that is better. It's always up for debate. So that is almost everything to do with the surgical console, right? Coming to the patient cart, this is a little bit, this is technically more challenging, but a little bit easier to understand also. This is essentially what does, what performs the surgery on the patient, right? So one is this kind of robot. This is, again, the Da Vinci system. It is a single patient cart system, right? Where there's a single column and there are multiple arms coming out of each, right? So this is essentially pushed to next to the patient and it is positioned next to the abdomen. And then the instruments are inserted and you can perform the procedure there. Compare that to a system like this, for example. This is a CMR system where there are multiple robots out there, and each of these robots individually enter into the patient. So the advantage that this has over the main system, over the Da Vinci system, is that it is very modular. And as you can see, it's very small in size. So this is a concept similar to what we are also doing. So if you want, you can use a 2-robot system. If you want, you can use a 3-robot or a 4-robot or a 5-robot system, right? But this is always a 4-robot system or a 4-arm system. So that's the core difference. Now, for all the viewers out there, if I'll ask a question, please after this let me know if you can tell me one major advantage that this has or the conjoined arm system has over the disjoint arm system. Please let me know at the end of the talk. Great. Now coming back, one of the most important things that is there for these carts is known as something known as a remote center mechanism. Now, while you might be thinking these are very simple robotic arms, something that is very important is that when the instrument is inserted into the abdomen, the point where the instrument intersects the abdominal wall, that point has to remain fixed. Because if that moves, it will move the abdominal wall along with it and it will tear it out. So therefore, that point is known as a remote center. Why is a remote center? Because obviously you cannot have anything close to that. You have to create a mechanism which moves the instrument about that point. It completely pivots it, right? And that is known as a remote center. There are many ways of doing it. One of them is a double parallelogram mechanism, which is something that you can look it up. It's a very common mechanism to achieve a remote center. There are also robots that do achieve the same using a software remote center as well. Now, finally, coming to instruments. These are the most critical parts of the surgical robot. Now, these instruments generally are 8 millimeter or 5 millimeter in their width. So this is 8 millimeter, right? Now, why they are unique is because compared to standard laparoscopic instruments, which are straight stick instruments, so we just open and they close, right? But if you compare that with this, these systems have a complete wrist-like motion. So if you look at one of them, for example, let's look at this example for now. If you see, there is a pivot here, and then there is a pivot here, and then there are two grip points here, which essentially means this is degree of freedom 1, degree of freedom 2, and then finally this itself also rotates about its own axis. So that's degree of freedom 3. So each of these instruments have 3 degree of freedom, where the 4th degree of freedom being the opening and the closing of the tip, right? And that therefore it makes it very, very analogous to the human wrist. It makes very simple and easy to perform surgeries in that way. Now, there are many different kinds of instruments. There are close to 60 to 80 different kinds of instruments. Every surgical robot has a different kind of instrument, right? There are some very special instruments as well, which are known as energy instruments, which are basically, in order to cauterize vessels or to cut vessels, and it's used for that purposes. Now, coming to what makes the biggest robotic challenge in this is most of these instruments are tendon driven. So these are driven by tungsten cables, which are inside the instrument itself. So you cannot have any motor close to this, right? Because these are very small. So the motor has to be at the very end. So how do you transmit the power or from there to here? So you use these tendons, to transmit the power. Yeah, finally. So optics. Optics is the last part of any surgical robot. Generally, a rigid laparoscope is used in surgical robotics. A laparoscope could be either a monocular, which is like a 2D kind of a display, or it could be 3D display as well. There are different kinds of lighting source that is used. It could be a cold source or it could be an LED source, right? And as if you remember, I was talking about indocyanin green, which is hyperspectral imaging. So this is an example of hyperspectral imaging. So the patient has been injected with ICG, indocyanin green, and if you turn on the hyperspectral imaging in your optics system, this is now showing a particular part, like I think this is fat or vasculature. I'm not able to understand from this image, but it basically shows that, and then the doctor understands where to dissect, what to leave, and what to cut. So this makes it's very, very important to have that, especially if you are doing cancer procedures to identify, malignant tissue and normal tissue. Great. So we are almost at the end of our talk. I want to very quickly touch upon what we are building. So these are some of our very old videos. This is the one that I could capture. As you can see, some of the robots are there on the screen. And this is one of our older consoles, that we worked on. Now, these systems are undergoing reliability trials right now. This is how the procedure looks like, essentially. This is on a sample mock-up tissue that we are trying to do, like an endosuturing experiment, where the entire needle is being controlled to do a knotting operation, right? So these are our systems essentially. As you can see, our console is probably one of the smallest consoles in the world, and each of these robots are so small that you can fit four of these in the corner of your small OR and then bring it and use it, whenever you want. So that's a little bit about the Pulsar system. We are also working on a few other robots. One of them is Galaxy. Galaxy is essentially an assistive robot. It's a robot that uses or that enables laparoscopic surgeons to control their camera while performing a surgery. So it's basically a very simple remote activated instrument holder. And yeah, so that is something that we have. We're the only ones in the world who actually makes this. Nobody else has the IP on that. And finally, also we have a surgical training system as well. So for those of you who are in Delhi, we are sending one of our trainers to IHFC pretty soon. I think we're still working on that. So please feel free to drop by and have a look at the system itself. This is essentially what surgeons use to train to do or perform the procedures, and this is where they learn to do it to train their neuromotor skills. Great. Last but one slide. Essentially, what makes our company different from most of the other companies is that instead of being a company where you gather things from different places and merge it together to build something, we decided to build a complete stack, right? So everything starting from the actuation system to the instruments to electronics, software, control systems, completely owned and developed by us. It has taken close to around 5 years now, 4.5 to 5 years since the inception. We have a very strong R&D team, 24-member team, and we're still hiring. We're still getting more and more people on board, right? Multiple patents across multiple things that we have, and multiple papers we have published in the field. So we are more than just being an aggregator to create a medical device. We are a full stack technology company, which essentially creates medical devices. So where does the future really lie? I mean, if you are a researcher, if you are a scientist, if you have a startup, if you're working on medical robotics or robotics in general, like where does things lie? I think one of the biggest things that's going to come up or has come up, in fact, it still needs to be mastered, is telerobotics. Telerobotics is going to enable a lot of interplay between surgeons being located at one place and procedures happening at another. While at the same time, some of the other things would be, for example, haptics. One of the biggest failures of robotics until now is that surgeons don't feel what it feels like to pull a tissue. So sometimes they apply a higher force, sometimes they apply a lower force, and therefore that can be detrimental. We're also looking at partial autonomy. So when we say partial autonomy, let's say some part of the dissection, some part of the suturing, some part of the endostapling could actually be automated so that the surgeon has to do less amount of intervention at that point of time, and a certain portion of the procedure could be automated. Now, we are also looking at hybrid surgery. Hybrid surgery essentially means, can a surgeon stand next to the patient and operate while the robot is also performing? So the coexistence of the robot and the surgeon is going to be very important. This requires a lot of evolution of joint torque sensing. It requires collision avoidance, and a lot of work is going on in that front, right? Of course, and I think this is of importance to everyone who is also not in the field of medical robotics, that is subsystem indigenization. At this point of time, there are so many critical components that are being imported into India, to build our surgical robots, that we don't have an autonomy on that. Everything starting from actuators, gearboxes, cables, belt systems, multiple other things, right? We really, really need to work on sort of doing that. And finally, I think the biggest aspect is, the high reliability. So if we are able to create systems that have high reliability, it will reduce the operational cost on the patients and therefore make robotics way more affordable for a lot more surgeons. So this was my last slide. I'm going to leave you with a couple of, cartoons to look at. I was just mentioning about telesurgery. So maybe this is going to be the result one day. Surgeons can actually sit at home and be able to perform procedures. I don't know whether to take that in a positive way or in a negative way. I just hope that the surgeon has had his coffee before he operates on me. So with that, I'll end my talk, and I'm open for questions. Thank you everyone for your kind attention.
That is really nice. Thank you so much, Saurya. This is a good one. In fact, this is exactly what I was talking about when I introduced you. I said why cobotics is so essential in healthcare and medical robotics, because there is a chance of the doctor not getting his cup of coffee and probably not having his good night's sleep. So yes, that's when cobotics will come into play and really do the justice that it's supposed to in the medical industry. So, with that, let's open up the floor for questions. Anybody who has questions, can you please raise your hand so that we can unmute you and you can ask your question. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Do we have any hands raised, or was Shaurya so good that nobody has any questions?
I would say so confusing, but okay, thank you for that.
Or maybe just very enlightening, and they all feel very enlightened and very overwhelmed with all the information, because it can get a lot to take in for one evening for 40 minutes. So no questions. I presume I do not see anybody raising a hand.
Does anyone have the answer to the question that I asked in between, if anyone remembers?
Okay. No. They do have. Tanmay Pal, is there any standard on surgical robots?
Yes, there are a lot of standards. There are a lot of standards and compliances around surgical robotic systems. Every surgical robot has to be compliant with the country's medical device code. Of course, in India, the code is the CDSCO, Center for Drug Control. They look after this. And our device, for example, is a Class C device. So it's a moderate to high risk device, which essentially means we have to comply with a lot of international standards. The most common of them being IEC 80601 and IC 60601, both of them. So, and there are many other compliances also, but these are the main ones. So yeah.
All right, Deepak, I hope that answers your question. We have Professor Saha. Can we request you to please ask your question?
Yeah. Thanks, Saurya, now for the interesting talk. My question is very generic. When do we be able to see in real life, actually, when commercial domain?
Sorry, sir, I didn't follow the last part of it.
When do you think that it will be sold in the market?
Oh, so our system, sir, we are currently doing preclinicals. So we would be in the market somewhere around mid of next year, in the most optimistic way. But you would see our system as early as January to February of the coming year.
Very good. And what will be the target price range?
We are still in process of discussing that. We're still trying to figure out. But let me put it in this way. Compared to the nearest competing system, we would at least be 3x more affordable. So we are looking at a range closer to around 5 CR, 4.5 to 5 CR. That's the range that we're looking at, but we could go even way lower also. It's a matter of the customer. It's a matter of, so we identify ourselves not as, our hospitals are not our customers, but more like they are our representatives, where we can provide the benefit to the patient. Right. So in this way, it's almost like a co-working with hospitals. So we will always create a case which is beneficial both for the hospital and for the patient and for us as well. So yeah.
Thank you. All the best, Saurya.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Saha. Any more questions? Please raise your hand. Okay. All right. I think Deepak has already asked his question, and then there was you, Professor Saha. So I don't think there's any more questions to be asked. So what I will do, as promised, actually, we have a very exciting offer for starting from this Cobotalks. We are actually offering internship with our Cobotalks speakers, and because a lot of people, we get queries later on from various students and various people who are young researchers and young startups and innovators, that, ma'am, how can we get in touch with your speakers? If they can guide us, they can mentor us, they can help us, if we can do a short internship to understand their domain better. So there are many questions like, so we are opening out Cobotalks to all our young attendees over here. In fact, team, we could put up our link for the questionnaire. That is also going to be available on the website, on our IHFC website. We're going to be giving you a link where you can fill in your questionnaire, fill in your area of interest, and say, I wish to work with Saurya Mishra of Articulus and in what domain. And Neha, I think, has already posted the link in the chat box. So please feel free to access that link, fill that link for your queries for interning with Saurya, and in the future, our next Cobotalk speakers. And well, he will then select and then probably be in touch with you from the selected CVs that he downloads. Is that fair enough, Shaurya?
Yes, perfect. That works out really well.
Okay, that's wonderful. Shaurya, also, if you could put up your email ID on the chat box, in the chat box, so that people can just write to you in case they have any query regarding, how to go about it, or what kind of offers do you have in internships?
Sure. I will, I'll put out the email ID of our human resources if you're looking for an internship. So
that's wonderful. And even for queries to you, they can write wherever they can write.
Yes, to reach out to me, I would say the better way to do that is to reach out through LinkedIn. Just drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Then do give your LinkedIn, then do put in your LinkedIn profile also in the chat box so that they can just click and follow you.
Sure, I would have to find that.
So Saurya Mishra has put his HR queries for HR queries and internship queries, because once you fill in the form, it will be sent to HR. So HR@articulussurgical.com. That's what his HR email ID is. So anybody who is not who's not being able to access anything can reach out to him HR directly or through us through our normal form. And he's also going to be putting up, I think, in the chat box his ID.
Yes, already done.
Okay, wonderful. So Saurya has already put forward his LinkedIn ID as well. So all of you can please join him and follow him on his LinkedIn ID. Okay, but today that's not all. Actually, we have something very, very exciting, and for the first time, we are going to actually go ahead and we have got a collaboration with our Medical Cobotics Center with IIITD, and we are having very interesting hackathon as well as seminar and workshop in December. So if I could request the team to put up the poster for the December event, please, which we are launching at the Medical Cobotics Center in collaboration with Maulana Azad Medical College. That's MAMC for you. So this is going to be coming up. So for more information, you can access our website. It's going to be put up very soon, or you could write to us or watch all our social media handles. We'll be putting up all information about this very soon. So this is for your information. There's fabulous cash prizes to be won. You can attend seminars, you can attend the hackathon, you can attend the workshop. It is open to all medical inventors in medtech. So please do go ahead and keep your eyes and look out and watch out for this, which we're going to be launching very soon. It's very interesting and it's going to be happening in December. So December first week, as a matter of fact. So very exciting times ahead. So I guess I will now request Saha sir, if you could say a few kind words to Saurya and also hand over the Springer voucher to him.
Yeah, thank you, Priya. And well, I think enough said by me already, and I really appreciate this young entrepreneur taking up this very difficult task for the country. But I'm sure he would succeed, and IHFC would be always behind you, Saurya. So please accept this 150 euro voucher, sponsored by Springer, and you would be able to get books of your preference, and we'll let you know how to do these things. So please accept on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Saurya. I think this has really been a very interesting talk, very dear to my heart in terms of medtech, because I really feel very connected with this segment. So thank you once again, and it's wonderful to see the work that you're doing. And we can't wait to see things getting commercialized and being accessible to everyone. So thank you, and please accept this Springer voucher. We will be sending across it to you via mail, and then the team will guide you how to go ahead and redeem the same.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Okay, bye. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for such a
Good
wonderful
night.
session and for attending. Good night, everyone. Thank you.